Hey everybody. In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can create a pivot table and how you can recreate it using just the formula. So here I've got some card holder expenses, and if I want to convert this into a pivot table, just go to Insert, Pivot Table, and let's say I want to put it on my existing sheet here, right down here. Hit OK, and I'm going to put the amount in the values, the categories. Let's say I'll have those going down in rows, card holders going across. All right, so simple pivot table, and have it organized by category and by card holders. One thing I'll do is I'll adjust this number format so it's an accounting format, a bit easier to follow. So that's how we make a simple pivot table. So what I'm going to do now is try to recreate this using just the formula. So the first thing I'm going to do is copy these labels over just to make sure I've got everything on here. So I've got my card holders, I've got my categories, and now my goal is going to be to recreate this. And to do this, it's actually not very complicated because all this pivot table is basically doing really just a sum if calculation on all this to say, okay, give me the total of spend that bill spent on clothing, on convenience stores, all that sort of stuff. So to do this, all we need to do is really just use a sum ifs statement, sum ifs, because we've got multiple conditions. You could also use something like sum product, but basically you're just doing something where you're doing multiple calculations and you just need to apply multiple conditions. So the sum range is going to be my amount, column E. As for my criteria range, the first criteria is going to be the card holder, which is in column B here. And for the actual criteria, I'm going to select the name here. And the key to making this formula versatile is I want to be sure I'm freezing the right cells. So column E needs to be frozen because I don't want that to move as I copy this formula across. Column B also needs to be frozen because the card holder is going to stay the same. Now, the name of the card holder, that needs to change, but the header needs to stay at, or the row needs to stay at 25. So I'm going to freeze just the 25. So that's my first criteria. My next criteria, my criteria range is going to be the categories. And this again needs to be frozen because that needs to stay intact. And my criteria here is going to be this category here. Now, in this case, the row number can change because I needed to go up and down, but the column needs to stay the same. So in this case, I'm going to freeze column H. So if you just press F4, it's going to toggle between all these different freezing options, whether you want everything, just the row, just the column, or nothing. So in this case, I want the column. And so now I'm going to close this out. And if that works correctly, I should actually have 0 for that one, which I do. And now if I copy this all the way down, you can see I got 137, 41, and I can create a grand total here as well, just to prove this out and make sure that I've got my total, so 10, 15, 57. So now because my formulas have been created with freezing these cells, I can copy this across and the results should be fine. So we can see 994, 826, 1289, 1605. And now to fully copy this, I can have another grand total here that takes the sum of all this. So we got 299. Copy this all the way down, and let's further copy it down here. 5731. So we got 5731 whether we select this way or we select this way. And so you can see 379, 242, 1020 for retail, right? So all of this generated pretty quickly and easily just using a sum if statement. Now, again, you could use other formulas. The key thing is you just want to be able to sum it up and apply multiple conditions. And the point of me showing you this is, if you do want to do a summary like this, like a pivot table, you don't always have to go the pivot table route because pivot tables in some cases can be really hard to manipulate and get them to look exactly how you want them to look. And with formulas, you can basically recreate this type of summary. If we had another filter by store, we could do the same thing. We just add another condition for the sum ifs. So it's really easy to recreate pivot tables. Obviously, if you've got 50,000 rows, a formula may not be ideal, and you're still losing the ability to be able to double click into this, because if I double click on a formula, it's not going to show me what makes up that total, versus where if I double click on a pivot table, I do see what makes up that total. So there's some advantages to using pivot tables, but there's also advantages to not using them, because there's a bit more flexibility that you have if you're just putting in your own calculations here. So I just wanted to show you how you could do that, how you could basically replicate a pivot table without actually creating one.